Did you know that the world's largest pizza was bigger than 5 tennis courts? Or that the tallest Lego tower reached a height of 115 feet? Today, we're going big and exploring some of the most colossal objects the world has to offer. Let's watch it. It's fascinating. Hamburger. The record for the world's largest hamburger is quite volatile and changes frequently. In fact, there are hundreds of unofficial records for the biggest hamburger, as making them is somewhat easier than creating other giant foods. So, let's look at the largest commercially available hamburger in the world, which means it's not a once-in-a-lifetime project, but something you can actually buy, though you have to wait 3 days for it to be cooked and assembled, as it weighs around 776 pounds and requires a team of 10 people to put it together. It's made exclusively at the Pleasanton County Fair in California, and for just $1, you can buy a piece of the Superburger, which is the size of a regular hamburger. Shopping cart. What we're looking at here is one of the most unusual projects from the custom car garage known as Texas Cornfield Customs, based in San Antonio, Texas. The cart is roughly the size of a truck and can be driven like any other car. In fact, it has legal permits to operate on public roads. Although it's not officially the largest shopping cart in the world, it has become something of a myth among Texans. It's said to be good luck to see this colossal shopping cart on the road. It seems that everything really is bigger in Texas. Hot dog. When trying to create the world's largest hot dog, you have two options: the biggest hot dog by volume or the largest by length. In this case, we've got both. For volume, the winner is this monstrosity created for the popular cooking channel Tasty. To achieve such a massive sausage, the meat had to be made from scratch using ground meat and spices, which were stuffed into a special casing and cooked in boiling water to create a gigantic sausage. This was then placed in an equally enormous bun, resulting in a hot dog weighing 20 pounds, equivalent in volume to 80 regular hot dogs. It was so big that the only way to eat it was to cut slices and eat them like a hamburger. On the other hand, for length, the winner is this Chicago-style hot dog, which made its debut on Conan O'Brien's show. This monstrosity measured a whopping 39.37 feet long. That's roughly the length of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's almost as long as the stage. Which do you think wins, volume or length? Pizza. Are you also a pizza lover? The YouTuber Eric Decker, known as Airac, and his team managed to make the world's largest pizza in Los Angeles, USA. The challenge was done in collaboration with Pizza Hut, which provided the ingredients to create a monumental pizza of 13,970 square feet. That's the size of more than 5 tennis courts combined. To set the record, they used 6,193 pounds of dough, 5,000 pounds of tomato sauce, and 3,992 pounds of cheese. The cooking process was a significant technical challenge, as the pizza had to be built, baked, and delivered in under 48 hours to meet health regulations. This achievement not only set a milestone in culinary history, but also served a charitable purpose. All 68,000 slices of the pizza were donated to local charities to help feed those in need in Los Angeles. iPhone. I'm a loyal Android user, and it really annoys me when people flaunt their iPhones. This right here really makes me mad. Just kidding. What we're looking at is the largest iPhone ever created, a monumental scale version invented by content creator Matthew Beam. Everything on this phone was made to emulate the functions of a regular-sized iPhone, so all the buttons are there and work just like they would on a normal iPhone. For the screen, they used a touchscreen TV loaded with the standard iPhone software, and in the end, it worked just like any other phone, only, much larger. Game Boy. And speaking of pocket-sized games blown out of proportion, here we have the king of all Game Boys. This monster was built by Ilhan Unal, a technology student and video game enthusiast who created a Game Boy case with absurd dimensions of 39.8 inches in height, 24.4 inches in width, and 7.9 inches in depth. The software is exactly the same as that of a normal Game Boy, but the hardware has been massively enlarged, and each of the giant buttons is fully functional. Although playing with these oversized buttons adds another level of complexity since you have to use your whole hand to press them. I don't know about you, but I grew up with Game Boys, and seeing one this big puts a smile on my face. Bicycle. This is the tallest bike in the world. And you'd have to be pretty crazy to want to try it. Oh yes, it's extremely tall. The impressive Star Bike measures 25.5 feet, surpassing the previous record by 14 inches. Despite its colossal size, the Star Bike has the basic components of a bicycle: a saddle, 2 standard wheels, a handlebar with brakes, and even a bell. Despite its gigantic frame, a 52-foot chain connects the pedals to the rear wheel. Maintaining stability on the bike, which needed to be ridden at a minimum speed of 9 to 12 miles per hour, was a major challenge. To ensure its integrity and safety, David wore a harness during the official 328-foot test. Built primarily from recycled materials like wood and steel, the bike is not only an engineering feat, but also a symbol of environmental awareness. Nicholas and David, passionate about cycling activism, spent 3 months designing and nearly 2 years building it, proving that with about €1,000, basic tools, and big dreams, extraordinary things can be achieved. Lego Tower. If you played with Lego as a child, you probably tried to build the tallest tower possible with the bricks you had. And well, if you had all the Legos in the world, it might have looked like this. This is none other than the tallest Lego tower ever built. It stood at 115 feet tall and required a total of 550,000 individual bricks. The project was created for the 2015 LEGO exhibition in Italy and involved up to 18,000 people, most of whom were LEGO-loving kids who attended the exhibition. After a while, it became necessary to secure the tower with ropes, as the plastic bricks are not very structurally stable. But it still managed to break the record. Chicken Nugget. But hey, if you're not into the world's largest hamburger, why not go for the world's largest chicken nugget? That's right, there's a whole menu of supersized foods waiting for you. This giant breaded chicken nugget was created by YouTuber Nick DiGiovanni. To make it, he had to use industrial amounts of ground chicken breast, eggs, flour, and spices, mixing them all in a mold to create a massive nugget block. Of course, there isn't a fryer large enough to cook that much chicken, so he had to use an industrial oven. In the end, the Super Nugget weighed about 44 pounds, earning the title, though functionally, it was more like a giant chicken cake. Still, I'd take a bite. Skateboard. I don't think even the legendary Tony Hawk could pull off tricks on this skateboard, but it's still amazing. Let me introduce you to the largest skateboard ever made. Designed by Rob Dyrdek and Joe Sciaglia in 2009, it measured an impressive 36.54 feet long, 8.63 feet wide, and 3.61 feet high. That's bigger than some cars. The skateboard was only rolled out in 2009 and has been stored since then. So unfortunately, there are no high-quality videos of the giant skateboard in action. Still, it's impressive. Lighter. I've never seen the first lighter run out of fuel. They always get lost or someone takes them and they never return. With this one, well, I think the story might be different. This is the largest lighter in the world, and believe it or not, you can actually buy one, though you'd need to be in the UK and have special permissions to get one of these. Functionally, these lighters are more like propane flamethrowers, but the controls are adapted to resemble those of a regular lighter. And if you're not into regular lighters and prefer barbecue lighters, we've got you covered with an extra-large version of this type of lighter created by the wacky YouTuber Peter Sripol. The existence of 2 different types of giant lighters is proof that the internet has an unhealthy obsession with fire, don't you think? Cereal bowl. As a kid, I loved cereal, and diving into a giant bowl of cereal with milk seemed like a dream. But now that I'm grown up, I think I'd think twice before jumping into that bowl. Especially after seeing the faces of YouTubers who have done it. Because believe it or not, they've done it more than once. The first to do it were Rhett and Link from the channel Good Mythical Morning, who jumped in pajamas into a giant bowl of cornflakes. Initially, it was fun because while the cereal was dry, it wasn't uncomfortable at all. But as soon as they added the milk, well, I think the faces of both YouTubers say it all. Although Link was having the most fun day of his life. And of course, Mr. Beast couldn't resist doing the same thing. But instead of jumping in himself, he challenged random people to stay in the cereal bowl the longest for $10,000. How long do you think you'd last in that bowl? Water gun. As kids, we all wanted a giant water gun. And to fulfill that childhood dream, the famous YouTuber Mark Rober used his engineering background to create an enormous version of the classic Super Soaker. It's essentially the same design and works just like its smaller cousin, except it uses compressed air tanks instead of manually pumped air. The fact that everything is scaled up exponentially increases the hydraulic power the gun can unleash. This is no ordinary water gun, it's advanced water artillery. The pressure it handles can even shatter glass, fruits, and soda cans when turned up to the max. It's not as harmless as its smaller counterpart, but it's definitely impressive. Giant PS5. Technology tends to get smaller over time, so new versions of video game consoles usually become smaller and thinner. And then there's this giant. Yes, you're seeing it right. A Godzilla-sized PlayStation 5 complete with a giant controller. And if you're wondering, absolutely everything in this console is fully functional, just scaled up 100 times its original size. It's so big that playing requires 2 or more people, each handling one of the joysticks. That's certainly an unusual way to make a game multiplayer. These giant consoles are typically made to promote the regular-sized ones, and in this case the giant PS5 was given to the folks at the ZHC channel, who specialize in customizing devices. They didn't waste any time turning this giant console into a work of art. Simply incredible. Balloon. We're going to show you the world's largest balloon, but of course, with a balloon this huge, we have to get someone to pop it. And no one on the internet is better suited for the job than the guys from the How Ridiculous channel. These balloons are nothing like the ones you see at parties. They're used to create atmospheric balloons that send probes into the upper atmosphere to collect climate data. They usually reach diameters of 36 to 39 feet. But this time, the guys managed to overinflate it to about 49.21 feet in diameter. The way it popped was simply spectacular. For a few seconds, there was a dust bubble where the balloon had been before it exploded. It's amazing how much fun you can have with something as simple as a latex sheet and some air. Blanket. It's impressive what grandmothers can do with just cotton thread, needles, and their skills. Now imagine gathering a large group of knitting grandmas to work on the same project. That's exactly what happened to create the largest crochet blanket in history. This mega project took place in India and involved over 1,000 women of all ages, although many were grandmothers. In addition to India, 13 other countries contributed 131.23 times 131.23 feet sections, and in the end, the blanket covered an astounding 119,650 square feet. With a blanket this large, even King Kong would sleep comfortably. After breaking the record, the mega blanket was divided into individual blankets and donated to various charitable foundations. Donut. What makes a donut a donut? Is it just the hole in the middle? Or is there something else that distinguishes a donut from a cake? Well, we might never know the answer to that question. But what we do know is how much the world's largest donut weighed and how it was made. It was created by Nick DiGiovanni, who managed to mold an enormous chocolate cake into the characteristic shape of a donut, then covered it with pastry fondant and decorated it with giant sprinkles to give it the appearance of a strawberry-glazed donut. In the end, it weighed an incredible 224 pounds. I wonder if it tastes as good as it looks. Monster truck. The whole point of monster trucks is for them to be ridiculously big, loud, and spectacular. So when we talk about the largest one, we're talking about perhaps the most exaggerated vehicle ever created. Enter the ridiculous Bigfoot 5. This beast has repeatedly broken all records for monster truck size, being at various points the tallest, widest, and heaviest in its iterations, as monster trucks evolve over time in appearance and power. Currently, Bigfoot 5's tires have a diameter of 9.84 feet, and each one weighs about a ton. It must feel incredible to drive, don't you think? Mousetrap. When it comes to making a mousetrap of this size, I can only imagine the kind of rodents they're dealing with. Just kidding. What we're looking at is the wild invention by the creator of the Backyard Scientist channel, who decided to create a giant, fully functional version of a classic mousetrap. Regular traps are already pretty powerful, but when you scale them up, they create even more destruction. Naturally, the creator took the opportunity to crush various objects with the trap in a satisfyingly dramatic fashion. But that's not all. He also used the giant trap to build a vehicle powered by the trap's spring mechanism, which is a common physics experiment, though the Backyard Scientist took it to a massive scale. Ah, the ingenuity of creators never ceases to amaze me. Giant matches. There's something interesting about chemistry. Chemical reactions always occur the same way, no matter the size of the object. On the other hand, physical reactions are affected by the size. This is a perfect example of that. Yes, giant matches. Essentially, they're just like their standard-sized counterparts, a stick with a bit of phosphorus-based substance that ignites from friction. And they work the same way. Phosphorus plus friction equals fire. However, the massively increased scale changes things since the match head is so large that the flame has to travel across it, meaning it can't ignite all at once. I was expecting an explosion or something, but hey, it's still pretty impressive. Gummy Burger. One of the biggest challenges in making a giant object is that there aren't tools big enough for the job, so if you want to create something extraordinarily large, you need to get really creative. That's exactly what the VAT19 guys did when they set out to make the biggest gummy burger ever. They melted industrial quantities of gummy candy and poured it into molds to create each part of the burger, like the buns, patty, lettuce, and tomatoes. They even went so far as to make gummy sesame seeds and cut the pickles just like they would if they were real. They even created a giant burger box. I can only wonder what it would be like to take a bite out of that enormous gummy. Climbing wall. How do you make the largest climbing wall in the world? Simple. Take an already massive wall and add climbing holds to it. That was the approach for the current record-holding climbing wall. In 2022, for the final of the World Climbing Championship, which is a relatively new sport, this enormous wall was built on the Verzaska Dam in Switzerland. The wall offered over 591 feet of uninterrupted vertical ascent for climbers. And since the event was a climbing race, there were multiple routes for different teams to climb simultaneously. Table hockey. Table hockey is one of the most popular arcade games. In this case, the VAT19 guys set out to create a hyper-large version of the popular game. This wasn't easy, because although it might not be obvious while playing, these games have a mechanical component. To make the puck slide smoothly, the table uses air jets from small holes in the surface, creating a low-friction surface for the puck to move more easily. Scaling this mechanism up was particularly challenging because the air pressure needed is very precise, and changing the size of the table makes it harder to maintain that pressure. In the end, after many obstacles, the creators achieved it and built this monstrous table. Playing on it was particularly challenging because it required a lot of running due to the table's dimensions, but hey, it's undeniably cool. Hummer. Hummers were designed from the start to make other cars look small, so imagine how ridiculously enormous the largest Hummer in the world is. Just look at this automotive titan. Its wheels alone are taller than an average person. Officially named the H1X3, it's 3 times larger than a normal Hummer in every dimension. 3 times taller, longer, and wider. That gives it dimensions of 21.65 feet high, 19.69 feet wide, and 45.93 feet long. Inside, it's furnished more like a small house than a vehicle, with a small kitchen, a fully equipped bathroom, and even a second floor. The vehicle can indeed be driven, but it's so large that it functions more like heavy machinery and moves as such, with a top speed of just 20 miles per hour. It's not fast, but for a vehicle of that size, it's decent. Rubber duck. I don't think we can really call this a rubber duck, it's more like a rubber monster. In fact, it's the Godzilla of rubber ducks. These ducks are part of a traveling art exhibit and have been seen in ports around the world, including Hong Kong, Toronto, Los Angeles, and New York. They've been everywhere. They measure about 55.77 feet tall and have appeared all over the globe. In one instance, during a storm, they broke free and wreaked havoc on a highway. Bow, arrow, and trebuchet. There's something primal about the human mind that gets excited by watching projectiles being launched. And of course, when there are objects that shoot projectiles, you can bet someone, somewhere decided to make them ridiculously oversized. And that's exactly what we're going to explore. Check out how a 29.5 feet tall bow was used in the annual festival in Rhinebeck, New York. Given the enormous size of the arrow, it didn't seem to move much, but it traveled a good 65.6 feet. But that's not all in the world of giant projectiles. We also have a current replica of one of the largest catapults ever built, trebuchets. These enormous counterweight catapults were used in the Middle Ages to bring down castles from a distance. Just look at how they fired. Amazing, right? Sandcastle. How high can you build a sandcastle? That's a question many kids ask on their first trip to the beach. Well, it turns out there is an answer. According to Guinness World Records, the tallest sandcastle ever built reached a staggering 57.8 feet. It took 12 sculptors and 8 construction technicians working 8 hours a day for 3.5 weeks to complete it. And all that effort paid off, as the castle was as beautiful as it was tall, featuring various sculptural details on its facades. No matter where you looked, there was something interesting to see. What can I say? When talented people come together and work on something for a long time, the sky is literally the limit. Lantern. This is the biggest and most powerful lantern in the world. And this is what would happen if you were shown with it up close. Just kidding. But seriously, this lantern is powerful. It was created by the guys at Hacksmith Industries who combined the components of the most powerful lanterns on the market to create this luminous monstrosity. To give you an idea, the most powerful lanterns on the market have 18 high-power LEDs, but these creators used 300 of those bulbs. The light was so powerful that it was impossible to measure the number of lumens it produced, as the light meter shattered into 1,000 pieces from the force of the lantern. This is why the internet is worth every penny. Dog. When you see a very large dog, people often say it's practically a horse. Most of the time, it's just an exaggeration. But in this case, it was real. This Great Dane did indeed have dimensions comparable to a small horse. In fact, it was significantly larger than most ponies. Zeus was the largest dog in the world to date, and to this day, no other dog has surpassed its height of 5 feet 4 inches. It was so large that it didn't use a water bowl, but drank directly from the tap. Unfortunately, this big buddy only lived for 3 years because the incredible size of Great Danes often leads to physiological problems, as the biology of dogs isn't adapted to such large sizes. We'll always remember you, Zeus. You were a great dog. Literally the biggest of them all. Jelly pool. What would it feel like to dive into a pool of jelly? Well, creator and physicist Mark Rober had to find out, and in the process, he created the largest solid jelly pool ever made. And yes, I know, it doesn't look that big. In fact, it's more like a small pool. But the fact that the jelly inside this pool is solid is quite an achievement. To solidify the jelly, you need to boil it and then cool it at low temperatures, which is tricky because there are no refrigerators that big. So the creator had to plan meticulously to make the jelly solidify during a cold winter night. And here are the impressive results. It looks amazing and must feel incredible. And in case you're wondering, yes, you can swim in jelly, though it's challenging due to the resistance it imposes while moving. Popsicle stick tower. Popsicle sticks aren't exactly the best building material. They have almost no structural integrity. But maybe that's what makes them so appealing for those looking to break records. Anyone can build a tower with stable materials, but making one with inherently weak materials is the real challenge, because you have to showcase all your architectural knowledge. This team of students in Brazil rose to the challenge, and what we're seeing here is nothing less than the world's tallest popsicle stick tower. Building it was a nightmare, as there was a high risk of it breaking during construction, but it ultimately stood at an impressive 78.3 feet tall and set the record just in time, as a slight breeze toppled the tower just 3 minutes after it was finished. But hey, what matters is that they set the record. Plastic cup tower. You've probably seen plastic cups arranged into large pyramids and towers in supermarkets. Well, this is the ultimate limit of such pyramids. What we have here is the largest plastic cup tower ever created. It was made in Mexico in 2015 as part of a promotion for the movie The Force Awakens. It required 42,925 cups, and after a long construction process seen here in time-lapse, the cup pyramid reached 50 levels and an astounding height of 30.7 feet. And to think that in the end, that movie was one of the less successful entries in the Star Wars saga. But at least the tower earned a record. Oreo. When you eat a package of Oreos, it always ends the same way. You crave more chocolate cookies and there are too few in the package. So the chefs from the popular food channel Tasty decided to do something about it and set out to make the world's largest Oreo. They even doubled its size. To do this, they had to create a dough similar to the one used in the original cookie, which is made from flour, eggs, butter, and most importantly, black cocoa that gives the cookie its color. Then, after mixing all the ingredients, they had to mold them to create a much larger version of the cookie's signature shape. Finally, they made a homemade version of the cream that goes between the cookies. In the end, it was more like a cake than a cookie, but it looks fantastic. Toblerone. A chocolate bar to end all other chocolate bars, a bar to give even the most dedicated sweet tooth indigestion, a chocolate to give nightmares to all dentists and doctors. That's what we have here. Giant Toblerones, enormous chocolate bars weighing up to 9.9 pounds and nearly 3.3 feet long. These monstrosities are sold in special stores as luxury edible decorations and can cost up to 100 euros. They're popular in the competitive eating community, but their popularity mostly comes from the fact that actually finishing them is impossible, even for those trained to eat a lot, as they always cause extreme stomach pain. They're like the ultimate challenge that no one in the community has managed to overcome, nor should they. Rubiks Cube. The record for solving the Rubiks Cube in the shortest time keeps getting harder and harder to beat. These people are geniuses with lightning-fast hands. They can solve it in just 3 seconds, as you can see here. But how long do you think it would take to solve this Rubiks Cube? It's not so easy now, is it? What we have here is the largest free Rubiks Cube ever created, measuring 5 feet 2 inches in height, width, and length, making it larger than most kids. To move this mega cube, you basically have to hug a section and move around the cube while holding it. Of course, it's incredibly impractical, but that's the point. Solving it isn't easy, as its monstrous size means you can only turn it sideways, adding extra layers of complexity. You need not only a quick mind and nimble fingers, but also strength, physical fitness, and advanced spatial awareness. I wonder what a competition to solve a cube of this size in the shortest time would look like. Wow, all these objects were huge. Which one would you like to have? Share your thoughts in the comments. Here are 2 options that you'll surely love.